Hey guys, how's it going? Another short video for you, or well, I mean, hopefully it's short. I'll try to keep it as succinct as I possibly can. So we're going to go over Zach's press, then the squat, then the deadlift in order from shortest to longest. The press, everything that I'm saying applies to both of you guys. I'm just going to go through one of the videos for the sake of time. So the major points here are that you guys are having relatively soft knees. And what I mean by that is that the knees are unlocking during the movement and it's really throwing everything off. So the wrists need to be straight, torso needs to be tight, so the abs need to be tight, the knees need to be tight, all of the movement needs to be coming from the hips. What's happening here is that Zach's adding a few more motions in here, so his spine is unlocking during this movement, his knees are unlocking during this movement, and it's really hard to find an organic bounce, so he's coming up onto his toes a little bit. Ryan, you're just stronger, so you're getting away with less of a fuss about it. That's essentially what's happening, but you guys are having pretty similar movement patterns on it. So what you need to be thinking about during this press. So the bouncy press is what everyone calls the press 2.0. So in this version of the press, your abs, so your abs in the front, the six pack right there, you need to think about flexing those guys down. That's going to create the front. That's going to create the tension point, which you are going to stretch by pushing your hips forward. Now, if we have all of that tension in the top and we have tension in our hip, but we don't have tension in our knees, then you're just going to drift forward and nothing's really going to be productive happening. So we need this part and our knees to be tight during the entire motion. So your quads and your abs should be flexed and actively burning the entire set. It's unfortunate and uncomfortable, but it's how it should be. So what's happening here is that his knees are soft. I think you'll walk back and we'll be able to see it a little bit more. He's popping up onto his toes. So essentially, what the cues you guys need to be shouting towards each other: tight knees, tight abs, straight wrists. Those are the big three there. Try not to come up onto your toes. If this load seems a little bit mismanageable, we'll reduce that for now. But those are basically the same cues for both of you guys. So tight knees, tight abs, and then just push only your hips forward. Don't think about pushing your knees forward. Don't think about pushing your chest forward. So we're going to go through the squat now. Ryan, your squats look really good. I didn't really have too many complaints about your squat. As for Zach, your stance was too narrow. So in the last video I mentioned narrowing or widening up the stance. It seems like you tried to widen it maybe by like an inch, inch and a half this time. I need that to be really drastic. So I'll show you why here in a second. So we're going to zoom in on your heels when you're squatting. So we have this little zoom in window on the top right, but your heels actually come off of the ground whenever you're squatting. Okay, so you're rolling in and your heels are coming off the ground. So essentially what we need to do is to make sure that our stance is really wide to facilitate our stomach and our hips dropping down in between our legs. So if we look at the bottom position of Ryan's squat, so as Ryan is actively squatting instead of just videotaping it and watching it through the phone, actively look at how his knees and his legs are really shoved out far to the side, which is going to facilitate his torso dropping down in between them. That's how we're going to get our full depth. These were still high. You did a good better job with the eye gaze, so it was where you were keeping your head. The bar position was a little bit high too, but we're going to work on that. Widen up your hands a little bit, let the bar sink down maybe about like another inch and a half, 2 inches. And remember, it's going to be below that bony ridge running across the top of our shoulder blade. So that's the landmark you're looking for. So move the bar down about an inch, inch and a half, widen the stance up 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 inches, and then let your hips drop in between your knees and just shove your chest down in between your knees as well. Mimic Ryan's squat the best you possibly can. It's a good squat, not too many complaints about it. We're going to go to the deadlift now. Ryan, for your deadlift, I really didn't have too many complaints either. Your feet were a little bit wide, but that happened at the beginning of your last deadlift cycle too, and it got progressively more narrow as time went on, so I'm not too worried about that. As for Zach's deadlift, in this one the loads were relatively light, but our lumbar spine was failing us. It was failing us because we were making it basically do all of the work. So just like in the last video, the knees were a little bit too far back. So we need to set up slightly farther away from the bar, let our knees come forward more, and then we need to push our stomach down in between our thighs to set our lower back. So we'll watch this rep at a good bit of a slower speed, and then we'll note just how rounded Zach's lower back is. So essentially the bar is breaking off of the ground with it already rounded. So right here, Okay, so you're trying to squeeze the chest up. We see the wrinkles in the shirt here, but what we've done is we've made our femur shorter. We've let our hamstrings win the fight between the lumbar erectors and the hamstrings, and our pelvis has rounded down. Okay, it's rounded in a clockwise function. I need you attempting to extend it in a counterclockwise function, so showing your butt off to the wall behind you. We'll compare these starting positions over here. Now what's happening is that you're starting more in a position 3 on this right, okay? And I need you starting in position 1 here on the left. So when your hips are too high, your hamstrings are too tight, and then that is going to make the lumbar spine's job hell of a lot harder. So we need you to drop your hips down a few inches, let your knees come forward a little bit more. So that is going to entail setting up slightly farther away from the bar. So for Ryan's setup, he can set up pretty much precisely inch, inch and a half away from the bar with his shins, and then take his grip and then go through the entire motion. For you, Zach, you may have to set up, closer to 2.5 inches, and really let your shins come forward a little bit more. And this way, you can really focus on getting your back extended. For a little bit, I think we should just practice, just keep it at 135. Gain the mental capability, that mind-muscle connection everybody talks about, to really contract our lumbar spine intentionally. One good thing to do for this is before your deadlifts, go to like a 45-degree back extension machine. Get some reps in there. Lay down on the ground in a prone position. Do some Superman. So with your stomach on the ground, use your lower back to pick your shoulders up, pick your arms up, and then pick your thighs and knees up off the ground as well. Do something to get your lower back burning. So that you know where it is, you can feel it, and you can intentionally contract it, so that when you go into one of these movements, that way you can have those faculties to do so. The rounding of the lumbar spine is going to be a limiting factor in really everything from the bench press to the overhead press to the squat to the deadlift. So this is something that we need to work out now while you're still a relatively young lifter. Outside of that, that's really it. For your pull-ups, for your chin-ups, we're going to have you guys doing pretty sub-maximal sets and just accumulating the volume over time. So those sets are pretty hard. We have those taking to failure for you guys for Wednesday. For these, this is going to be a larger amount of sub-maximal sets. So you guys can sprinkle these in throughout your other work, just so long as these get done. So for Ryan, it's going to be a 5x4 for you, and then for Zach, it's going to be a 5x3 for you. So if you guys want to enter, just kind of dose these in, some between the squat, some between the bench, some between the deadlift, that's totally fine. If you want to bolus them all at the end after the deadlift, that's fine too. As for the weights, we're not doing pause squats this time. Okay, so I know we missed the pause squats on Zach, but the pause squats on Ryan worked out really well. So for a squat, we're going to do 3x5 at 205. For you, Ryan, our bench is going to be 165. Deadlift is just a 1x5 at 255. Chin was 5x4. For Zach, we're going to do a 3x5 at 125, 3x5 at 140, and then a 1x5 at 195. So on your warm-ups here, cut this off if we can't figure out how to straighten out our lumbar spine. I'd rather just have you stay at a weight where you can control that, and then really make sure that that's rod and arrow straight. So if you can get to this working set, great. Otherwise, just record what you guys ended up doing here in some of these cells, and then just get your chin-ups in. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.